So actually, last time I was on the glass bridge, it was 5 days before it was almost hit with a Russian missile, which I managed to avoid.
Lucky you.
Yeah, I've had a few near misses. I seem to have quite bad timing in terms of when I choose to visit Kyiv.
Yeah.
Last question is, you spent a lot of time with Zelensky, working with him one-on-one. What aspects of Zelensky do you think are generally underappreciated by people?
Well, it's hard for me to say outside of Ukraine, what people underappreciate, but I think it is true that for a long time they didn't take him too seriously. Many politicians across the world in the West didn't take him too seriously. They thought of him as some sort of Trump phenomenon that, a famous person gets into office and then somehow without any competence, forms a government and starts ruling the country. And that was never the case. First of all, in terms of ideology, they couldn't be further apart, I think. Or they're very different, let's put it this way. And also they are different in terms of experience. And I think, Zelensky is in fact, someone who's very much about a consensus, forming a consensus, much more of a centrist than these populists. So not at all one of these populists that you see across the world. That's number one. And number two, in terms of his competencies, it is true that he has a very different background, but his background is also very much in the private sector, right? He's not just an actor, but he's also a producer in the past, was a producer, and also an entrepreneur. He's built his own company, right? So, and done that successfully. So he's applied, I think, some of these management skills quite successfully as a president. And what surprised me, at least, is that I saw him in a lot of discussions around the economy, asking the right and intuitively the right types of questions and sort of figuring out the essence very quickly without any background knowledge, almost more rapidly than many of the ministers, and they should have known a lot of the material and should have had the background knowledge at least. So I saw him navigate sort of uncharted waters for him very effectively on a lot of these economic issues. So I think that speaks volumes in terms of his knowledge or his capacity to be an effective leader. And then obviously he's been very effective during the war. So you could still say that he's an unconventional leader because he doesn't come from this hierarchy or natural hierarchy sort of in politics. He didn't come up as a politician. He didn't have the experience as a politician. But he's unconventional in that sense. But that has also been a huge advantage to us during the war, the full-scale war, because that lack of conventionality, if you want, that unusualness around him, is what made him stay, is what made him such a strong leader. And his strength in communication are obviously evident now to everyone. And you might have had someone who was very technically apt and who was very much in line with what conventional politics is in the West, did have the right education, didn't have the right preparation, but would have left on the first day, right, and would have just abandoned the country. So I would say perhaps even if you could identify some of his weaknesses, those weaknesses had a flip side which turned out to be huge strengths under the current circumstances that we have here. So now it's evident to most that he's a historic figure and that he has made a big impact in our region.
Are you able to speculate on whether he had political ambitions when he chose to make servant of the people or not? Letterman asked him if he had the presidency in mind when he made the series, and he dodged the question. Do you think he was always planning a political career, which is why he made that TV show?
Yeah, you have to ask him.
Okay,
I don't know, but I can tell you that it was certainly, in hindsight, it was certainly a hugely effective campaign move,
right,
if you want.
Okay.
So it did have a huge impact. And he broke all the records in terms of his electoral result, right? He was elected with a majority of 73%.
Wow.
And that was never done before in Ukraine.
Lastly, can you tell us where we are and what this is? We have a beautiful shot of Kyiv is a good example of why I keep on coming back to the city.
Well, we're on the bridge that was built recently and that our mayor likes to present as his project, which is true, I guess. He did. That is his project.
Your mayor is a professional fighter previously,
yeah,
is that
Klitschko,
right?
That's right.
Klitschko, okay.
So,
Klitschko brothers.
Well known. So that's, the bridge that he's helped erect, and it's very popular, I think, and it's a great, actually, one of the great places in Kyiv now with a great view. Now, you've asked me about this monument. That's monument to the friendship of the Soviet people. Now, the arch, I think, is going to stay, but the monument itself, I think, is being torn down now because, again, it's symbolizing friendship among Soviet people, including Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, etc.
You can't just change what it represents. You're going to have to put something else there.
I think so. That's the plan. So it's all covered up now, and I think it's being demolished. So again, it's symbolic of the time, because now the general consensus is, common wisdom is that there's no friendship anymore, and I guess people can see where that's coming from.
If you liked this video, like and share so that other people discover it, and subscribe and turn on notifications so that you see new ones when they come out. And if you want to pay for my travel into a war zone, then support Operation Tiggy on Patreon. I'm also hiring a local team, so this creates employment in a country whose economy has been badly hit by the war. Can we get this car sticker? This is great. This is Idi Nahui that says "Go fuck yourself" in Russian in the shape of the Ukrainian trident.